For this episode of Wine and the Word, I'm going to invite you into some reflecting that I am doing this week as I prepare for a memorial service. You know, we as pastors do that from time to time, quite often, in fact, and they're all uniquely special and meaningful for us to do. This one coming up to me, I wanted to share a little bit with you and include you in my reflecting because of the kinds of things and reflections that it's bringing out of me. And I wanted to take a chance to introduce you to my friend Chris. I'm doing his memorial service tomorrow. So Chris, I've known him for about 25 years. In fact, he's the brother of two Gustavus graduates who Michelle and I got to know when we were at Gustavus, and we've been close friends ever since. In fact, at family occasions over at their house, Chris, Tim's brother, would come along and be part of birthday celebrations or 4th of July celebrations or whatever, and Chris would always be there as a younger brother. Now, Chris had a real warmth and a compassion, a caring demeanor. He was a simple brother and a simple friend. He had great parents who accompanied him every step of the way as well. And he really became part of my understanding of this whole broader family. Now, what I haven't told you so far, at least in this episode here, is that my friend Chris, whose memorial service is tomorrow, had Down syndrome. So that was a new thing for me as a person 25 years ago when I first met Chris. It was one of those opportunities that I'd never had a chance to experience before. Perhaps you can resonate with what I am saying. I didn't have at that point as a young man much experience with someone with Down syndrome. But Chris opened my eyes. So Chris was a young man who, as I said before, had a real sense of happiness and joy. So whenever I saw him, he was always smiling. And he was always glad to see me. He was always really quick to shake my hand, really quick to respond to my simple questions, with what he was up to and where he was going, and he made his way into not only my life and my heart, but also I know into the whole of the family. And so that, frankly, is one of the things that's going to be a little bit harder for me than normal tomorrow at the memorial service is that Chris is someone that I've known for 25 years, and he's made that mark on me. So it makes me pause and think a little bit about how far I think we have come in our society about dispelling the myths of what a disability is, what an ability is, to recognize with dignity the people who are around us, even if they're importantly different than us. Perhaps you can remember the day, and I can perhaps think back to a long time ago when people who were born with Down syndrome didn't have it for themselves nearly in the way that they have life for themselves today. Much of this has to do with parents who are advocating for the inclusion of their children, much like the way his parents advocated for his presence in their family. He was such a great part of who they are. I know also Chris participated in Special Olympics, and so that was a really big deal for him to be a weightlifter in Special Olympics, and he did that with gusto a couple of times and even won a gold medal. That's helped all of us, I think, in society embrace the community that the Special Olympics seeks to serve, both the individuals and the families who so value these sons and daughters in their lives. But mostly, I think of that advocacy work as not just parents or Special Olympics, but it's really relationships that we have the opportunity of having with people like I had with Chris. He was a great guy, a very memorable guy, and he did open my eyes to compassion and to love and to community, and what it means to be a caring community that I think God calls us to be in a wide and meaningful way, beyond what we might expect or even now understand, but to think even more widely of how God's love and grace impacts and includes and nurtures and supports all of us. regardless of our gifts and abilities. So I was thinking some about 1 Corinthians 13 as a result of what I'm sharing here with you. And you know 1 Corinthians 13 as being that wedding passage. But I'm going to read the first few verses of that for you, and I think it'll jog some memory for you. If it doesn't, you can take some time with it in your small group, 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but I don't have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but I don't have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. You know, love is patient and kind. You know how the rest of the service the reading goes. But what I want to share with you some about Chris and his abilities is that Chris wasn't necessarily, as the first part of that passage illustrates, he's not going to be a great orator or a great sermon giver or someone who speaks out in public with great effectiveness, but he had love. He's not someone who, in our current construction of society, where we send our kids to high school and then to college, and then we get on into embracing career pursuits, right? And then it's only really the mountain that gets climbed then in life until we reach an old age. Chris isn't capable of journeying on that path the same way that many of us are. But Chris had love. Chris also maybe didn't accumulate a lot of those possessions, as the Bible passage talked about, that can be given away so that we may boast. He didn't do that, but I know that he had love. And so in your small groups, I invite you with the questions to reflect a little bit more about how we're impacted by people who are different than we are, how they provide for us things that are measured in different ways. And how through it we can see and experience goodness and grace, love, and inclusion by just being involved in these kinds of privileged opportunities for relationship. So thanks for joining me, and blessings to you as you continue the conversations together.